Tuhon Jesse here with Guru Robert. Today we're going to show you the core drill for Pekiti Tirsia Kali. It's called Sabayan. Sabayan literally means same time. So we utilize the principles of same time in a drill called Sabayan. Right? We're going to take it in different steps. First step is that Guru Robert is going to give me a thrust to my belly, and I am going to move out of the way. Alright, so basically this is the center line. As this weapon comes to my center, I need to utilize my footwork strategy to get out of center, so as he continues his thrust, I am no longer there. Okay? So the way we do it is not only do we combine our footwork, but I also do a parrying technique where when it comes, I parry it. Alright, so I'm not trying to grab this weapon because we imagine this as a live blade. I'm not trying to grab it. I'm not trying to cup it. I am just looking at the side of the blade. Okay? And I'm just parrying it just like that. Alright? What I want to do is kind of track where the blade is and track my movement off center. But that's the first step. The principle of Sabayan literally means as he thrusts, I'm going to do something at the same time. So as he thrusts, I step back, I parry, and I thrust him as well. Okay? So again, our first step is as he thrusts, I thrust. I utilize the sidestepping movement, and that kind of brings my weaponry into a thrusting motion. There's two different ways to thrust. You can thrust from the bottom up or from the side across. All right? So again, thrust to thrust. So that's the first step. The second step is my response to his thrust after I've given him my response of thrusting. So this is a drill into offense, counter offense. And it's a drill, it's a cooperative drill. And he knows what I'm going to do next, and I know what he's going to do next. And we do this not to hit each other or to counter each other, but to continue the drill as we do our counters. All right? That's why it's called a drill. So again, from here, I'll do a backhand puño, and he checks my hand there. Right? So one more time. He thrusts, I thrust, backhand. Soon as I feel this check here, I'm going to leave this weaponry, and I'm going to check that hand just like that. Okay, that's my counter to his check. One more time. So thrust to thrust, check counter, and notice how I don't pull down. I check it, grab it, and pull back. What I'm doing is that if he happens to grab my hand, the opening of his index and his thumb is where I come out of. And I get this kind of action in reality as I pull him down for my counter. Okay? But I will not take it that far because we continue the drill. So he thrusts, he checks, I take that counter, and his next step, he's going to try and puño me, and he basically just try to puño me in the face, just like that. Is his counter to my counter. Okay? So again, here to here to here, he counters, right? Now, this is where I manage my distance. If I'm too close, all right, and I want to employ my contrada, I can't do it because this is going to hit me. I need to manage my distance in a close quarter fashion. Notice, this is kind of separates a lot of the other systems because we're using a long-range weapon in a close-range fashion. Okay, one more time. Thrust to thrust, check here. Now, notice how I stepped out and I did my contrada, slicing of the arm as he tries to puño me. Okay, one more time. All right, so again, so thrust to thrust here. So as soon as I cut, I check that hand because I don't want that coming back to me. All right, so these are the attributes that we're trying to train is that cut, give it a band-aid. All right, so every time I cut it, I give it a band-aid. So I'm helping them out. All right, so thrust to thrust, here, check here. I move out of the way, check that hand. Now I'm ready to do my counter. Okay, and those are the three steps for the one side. And what we do is we repeat it back on the other side. Okay? So this is kind of like our hubud lubud. We call it, Sabayan, where you can do any techniques at any given moment, any principle into this drill. Remember, this is a cooperative drill. And the goal here is not to stop the flow, but to employ your techniques and you continue the flow. So we practice our speed, our timing, our power, our accuracy, and our precision. We'll do one side and we'll transition to where me and Guru Robert will actually do both sides, right? So here, here, take it, here. Now it's my turn. Notice where his hand is here. He has to release that in order to give me that thrust to thrust, all right? Later on, we do other countering techniques later on. But as I see how he takes his hand and forces it back, so as I thrust, he does the same thing I just did. He parries, take his hand after he thrusts, and then he comes back at me, boom. As he checks my hand, I'm getting ready to do my counter for the punyo, and he checks the same way. Now he's got this hand, I have to release that because I want to address his thrust with another thrust. So as I see him go pulling back, I'm here. Okay, so let's do that again. So it starts with his thrust. As I thrust, punyo, I check, I take. Notice how his hand, if he leaves it there, I could very well hold on to it and he won't be able to counter. But what he does is it continues that motion, pulls it, and now it's released as I thrust. He goes back, takes my hand, I go to punyo, and then we start all over again. And this is what we call the Sabayan Drill. And the idea here is to just keep it flowing so we learn to feel, right? No matter how fast I go, Guru Robert is going to continue to flow. And we do our checks, our footwork. And there you go. So that's your basic Sabayan drill. But what's important and what's valuable about this drill, like I said, it's just like hubad lubad. You can employ any principle that you have into this drill. And the goal is not to stop the drill, but to actually continue it as you do these techniques. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to insert in between beats. All right? And I'm going to insert a gunting, which most Filipino martial arts, every system has a gunting concept. It's a scissor cut. So I'm going to cut his arm in a scissor effect and then continue the attack, and he's going to counter. And then what we're going to do is continue the drill. That's what Sabayan is for, continuation of the drill. So we're going to do this for a few minutes, few seconds. Right? And just kind of go through this drill. And then I'm going to do the gunting when I see it here. Okay? So basically when he gives me a punyo, I'm going to pass it from the outside, parry it. I'm going to cut it. Notice how I have to tuck it in because this is where my blade is. I cut it and I tuck it. And then this right here is in my way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass it. And I'm going to try and thrust him in the temple. Okay, one more time. Okay, so we're going through the drill here. I do the gunting. Notice how as I thrust, he parries this away. We call that luwak. And then he checks my hand. So I can't do anything else after that. And then from there, he's going to give me a punyo back again from the top. And then I'm going to go back and continue the drill. Gunting, and back to continuation of the drill. We'll go real slow. Gunting, thrust, and back into the drill. Here, here, gunting, back to the drill. Now, I'm being nice to Robert, because but in reality, what you want to do is increase the pressure of the gunting and the passing through. So now we take the role on as trainer and receiver in a back and forth fashion. When I'm giving him something, I'm training him. When he gives it back to me, he's training me on my responses and the attributes that I want to build. So as we do this and we increase our pressure, notice how I pushed his hand as far as I can. He has to realistically come back or else he's going to get hit in the temple. I'm also training myself by being quick when I do the gunting. I'm also training myself to cut and then quickly get back into the counter. All right? So again, a lot of it is the timing portion, and notice how Robert is feeling me and the energy I'm giving him. What I want to do is get so good that I trick Robert into feeling that counter. All right? And I increase pressure, because in the end, feeling and not necessarily seeing is how you counter. And that's how we get into a fight, especially close quarter. You have a long sword. You need to feel that counter versus seeing it. Now we're doing a cooperative drill. When I give it to him, he'll give it back to me. So that way we train each other. Because when I give it to him, I'm training him. When he gives it back to me, he's training me and himself as well to be able to push that to where I can increase my sensitivity into that push, into that touch. All right? So again, so here, here, here. Very good. So now that we've learned how to trick him per se into the counter, I'm going to trick him again, and I'm going to do what we call a palusut. Well, basically, I'm sneaking a cut from one side to the other. Now, there's really not a counter for this, because if you do it right, it should be non-counterable, if your timing is right. Okay, so again, we'll go here to here, I'll do the gunting, I'll cut here. Right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push his hand as far as I can outside of center line, and I'm going to give him that thrust here. So I show it to him. As soon as he reacts to it, I'm going to cut, and then I'm going to thrust back into the drill. Because remember, the idea of Sabayan is to continue to drill. I could end this fight at any given moment, but you're not training at that point, right? We're not doing completing or finishing techniques. What we're doing is building attributes so we continue the field. Okay? So again, from here to here, gunting, here, cut, and back. So notice how now he's reacting, right? If you get good at this, he sees it, but his mind hasn't caught up to his actions yet. So that's what we're trying to build. Because later on, he's going to be able to counter that. Right? Because I get really good at faking him out. But as he learns to counter those techniques, then we have a better fighter. Okay? So again, here, here, here. Yep, see that cut? It's already there. And then I check his hand, right? So I go back to the thrust, and then it will start all over again. And he can do it to me. Gunting, yep, there's the cut. There's that, see? And the whole thing just continues to drill over and over again. And then he cuts, and then he thrusts. I do the same thing here, cut, here, here. And this is where we progress into what we call a counter for counter. Some people call it sombrada, where it's a 4-count or a 5-count exercise. We do the shell of Sabayan, and then we go into different counters and see how you can react without notice. He doesn't know when I'm going to do it. right? He just needs to respond when he feels it. I think that's, for us, that's a great way of building our attributes. That way, there's no memorization of techniques. We just know how to do a gunting, we know how to do a palusut, but he doesn't know when I'm going to do it, so he needs to learn how to react to it at any given point. So again, here to here to here. So he doesn't know. He thinks he knows what I'm going to do, but I don't know what he's going to do either. So we're just basically flowing here and just react to it. So I can do the same thing, and we just react to it. It doesn't matter, right? Yeah. So this is a good way to teach someone to not think, but flow. Flow is where it's at. So you get into your subconscious, but it's learning how to control your subconscious so you act appropriately. No longer will you have this moment where you see something change and you're like, right? Because you break the OODA loop, all right? And later on we'll talk about the OODA and what it stands for and how we break it and how we continue it. But it's a way for us to be situationally aware and act appropriately based on the attacks that he gives you in the counter-offensive stuff, right? So this gets really dynamic when you go into your counter for counter. But we can also do what we call a technical drill where I can introduce other principles into this drill. So we did the gunting, I can also add what we call payongs into the drill, all right? And I'm going to choose on the number 1 puño is when I'm going to do a payong, and then I lead it to the next strike so we continue the drill. Remember, the goal for Sabayan is to continue the drill. It doesn't make sense to just stop it every second I do a technique. I need to do a technique and be able to continue the drill, just like a fight would, right? And not necessarily technique by technique, stop, technique number 1, technique number 2. We just continue to flow, and we put in different principles as we flow. So again, so from here to here, now, notice now, as I see that, instead of cutting from the outside or doing a gunting, now I'm doing a payong and back into a thrust. And then now we practice the principle of payong to continue the drill. There you go. There you go. Yep. So again, at any moment, yep, there you go. See? Anytime he feels like it, payong back into, yep. So what we're doing is we're combining it. He doesn't know when I'm going to do it. I could change anything. I could change it. We could be doing the payong drill and then all of a sudden just change it into whatever technique that we do. Then we go to then payong and then back into it. So again, the successive technique drilling you can do. So I went from here to gunting to the thrust to the palusut to the. So you can do any of that without stopping the drill. And Robert just continued on because he saw the marker. Oh, he's giving me a thrust. He needs to what? Do that same thing. So whatever drill that I do here, back to the payong, and then continue. I go to the gunting again here, right? Payong here, gunting, palusut here. Yep, not me, not today. So again, Sabayan is our main module for training any technique, any system, subsystems that we know in Pekiti Tirsia, and implement it into this drill. Our goal is not to stop the flow, because I can stop the flow at any time, right? But I can also change range. So we're kind of like a medium close range, but here, if I get behind, I can stop this right here. So now we're into Pekiti range, where I can do a Sagang Labo now, and then back into this, and back into this. Your typical Hubad Luba. But we're doing it with sticks. Then there's all this other stuff where you cut, gunting, get over, break, pummel, and so forth. Right? So this is where now I come out of it and we go back into Sabayan. I can go back into it at any time, right? So here, 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 back into Sabayan. So now we're going in and out of different flows, which is important because I need him to recognize that I've changed something and he need to act appropriately. Now, instead of the thrust to thrust, I'm going to do a slice to his thrust. So we're going to do Sabayan real quick, right? We'll do, and just keep going, right? And then now, I just incorporate a slash into that, right? Now, we're training and hitting here, right? Because I want to be fast. But in reality, I'm cutting his neck off, right? And then continuing into my finishing. So no longer am I thrusting, right? So now we go here, to here, to here, to here. Because now I see it. I cut the neck, right? Back into here. So we're changing based on our ability to observe and orient into what he gives me, right? To get into my decision so I can act appropriately. Because that's where it's at. Your ability to see what I'm doing and counter it and act appropriately is whether you're successful or not. Because what we do is we train you in the 5 basic things of doing a technique. Route, range, observe and understand your timing, and then economy of motion. So any techniques that we do has to have those principles at any given time. Right? Of course, in the beginning, we build it up. We get the core, then we're going to practice the Payong drill. Then we're going to do the slashing. Then we're going to do Sagang Labo. And then we're going to do all kinds of other techniques. But Robert doesn't know when I'm going to do it. Can I pull it off and continue to drill? I think that's where it's at. Okay? That takes knowing the next step. 3 steps move, ahead in order to continue to drill. But this is a way for us to get the principles that we learn in Pekiti Tirsia, throw it into a drill that has been shown to me by Grand Tuhon Leo T. Gahe Jr. and go through many different levels. I want to get to multiple beats before he can react. Now that's something. If I can hit him 2 or 3 or 4 times before the next phase of the drill, that's high level. So again, that's the drill of Sabayan. This is Tuhon Jesse and Guru Robert. Thank you for your time.